Well, now we're talking about the technique side, which is typically what we all focus on as far as being a great competitor, right? Having great technique. But as you can tell, it's as you've seen, it's the third thing on my list. And the reason why it's the third thing on my list is it is important, but it takes the proper mindset and it takes the proper conditioning and care of your body to be a great technician. They are all linked together, but that's why it's third on my list. If you can get those other two down, mindset and conditioning and taking care of your diet, then your technique is going to explode and with improvement. Okay, but let's talk about the technique itself. Technique varies from gym to gym, from person to person. So I'm not going to tell you, hey, Mark's technique is the superior technique, or Logan's technique is the superior technique, or Impact's technique, Team Impact's technique is the superior technique. They're all very similar. But here's what's important. If you're training at Team Impact, then you need to make sure that you're trusting in the technique that Team Impact teaches you, and that your coaches, such as myself and Logan, are teaching you. Trusting in the technique is huge. Okay, if we say, hey, live behind that jab, so to speak, then you need to live behind that jab. If we say, hey, every time you're on the ground, you don't need to be flat, you need to be on your side. Well, then make sure every time you're on the ground, you're not flat, you're on your side. Trusting in the technique is huge. Trusting in the technique means you have to trust in your coaches. Okay, you have to believe that what we're saying makes sense, and then when it doesn't make sense to you, that it's still the right thing to do. That's important. It's huge that you trust in the technique. And once you trust in that technique, then do that technique again and again and again and again. You'll hear Logan talk about it all the time. You got to do 1,000 repetitions or however many he says to make it a habit. You need to make sure that you are training that technique again and again and again and again, okay, that you trust in it, but that you train it so many times that it becomes muscle memory, that it becomes second nature to you, that every time your back hits the ground, boom, you're shrimping, you're arching, you're on your side. That every time you get tired, that jab is popping out there. Every time you start a fight, that jab is popping out there. Every time you end a combination, you're chopping that leg. Whatever it is that we talk about, you need to trust in it. You need to be repeated again and again so that it becomes muscle memory. And that muscle memory and that trust will improve your reaction time. If you don't trust in it and you've not practiced it again and again, it's not muscle memory, then when you need to react and you need that split second reaction, it's not going to be there. You want it to be there because, fights are not pre-choreographed, right? And competitions are not pre-choreographed. They don't work exactly the way they do in training, right? Like every time you do a technique in training, there's variables and there's variations and there's these unknown factors. You got to be able to deal with that, okay? So the way you deal with that is having superior technique. The way you have superior technique is that your body can keep performing that technique. And the way your body keeps performing that technique is that you've mentally prepared and told yourself that you're going to be there and learn it and be conditioned. You see how they're all working together. Strong mind, strong body, then your technique comes along and you're able to trust in it, perform muscle memory, and have excellent reaction time. If you do that, you're going to be not only strong mind and be able to push a pace that nobody can hold, but your technique is going to be superior. And in the end, that should win you the match or the fight or whatever it is that you're doing.